Okay, today we're diving into one of the most powerful and, yeah, one of the most debated teaching techniques out there. It's called no opt-out. It's all about creating a classroom where setting a high bar isn't just an option, it's the standard for every single student. Let's get right into it. So picture this. It's a moment we've all seen, right? A teacher asks a question and the student just shrugs and says, I don't know. For most people, that's it. That's the end of the line. But for a teacher using no opt-out, that's not the end. That's actually where the real teaching is about to begin. You see, the whole idea here is to completely reframe what I don't know even means. It's not an excuse, it's not a failure. Think of it more like a diagnostic signal, a little flag the student raises that tells the teacher, hey, I need some help to get to the answer, not, please let me check out of this lesson. And here it is, the one non-negotiable rule of no opt-out. The student who starts the conversation by not knowing the answer must be the one to end the conversation by saying the correct answer out loud. It's a simple structure, but it's powerful. It basically guarantees that I don't know is just a temporary stop, not a permanent exit ramp from the learning process. Now, the philosophy behind this is what makes it so compelling. Proponents say, look, this isn't about embarrassing a kid or putting them on the spot. It's actually an act of inclusion. The message a teacher is sending is huge. I see you. I believe you can do this, and I'm not going to let you just fade into the background. Your voice matters here, and I'm going to stick with you until you get it. So, how does this actually play out in a busy classroom? Well, it's not about just staring a kid down and demanding an answer. It's a structured system, and there are actually 4 clear paths a teacher can take to guide that student to success. Let's take a look at what they are. Here are the 4 formats. You'll notice they basically fall into 2 different categories. The first 2 are all about providing the full answer. Either the teacher says it or another student says it, and then the original student just repeats it. Simple, fast, guarantees success. But the second 2, well, they're a bit more challenging. That's when the teacher or a peer gives a cue, a hint, that helps the student figure out the answer on their own. And this really shows you the strategic choice a teacher has to make. Formats 1 and 2, repetition, are what you'd call a low cognitive load. They're awesome for building confidence, for speed, for just getting basic facts down. But the real magic, the real goal, is to get to formats 3 and 4, cueing. That's what pushes a student from just repeating something to actually thinking and problem solving. Now, this technique isn't just some clever classroom trick. It's actually deeply rooted in some pretty major psychological principles. There's a whole science that explains why setting a high bar and then helping people reach it actually works. It all starts with something called the Pygmalion effect, which you might know as the self-fulfilling prophecy. We have decades of research showing that when you have high expectations for people, they genuinely tend to perform better. So by refusing to accept I don't know as the final word, a teacher isn't just being stubborn. They are actively demonstrating a powerful belief in that student's ability to learn. And we have the data to back this up. In these studies, they use something called an effect size to measure how much impact a behavior has. Basically, a positive number is good, a negative number is bad. And as you can see, the impact of supporting a student to get the right answer is strongly positive. The impact of just moving on, it's negative. No opt-out essentially forces every teacher to adopt the high expectation behavior every single time. Then you've got Vygotsky's big idea, the zone of proximal development, or ZPD. You can think of it as the sweet spot for learning. It's that space between what a student can already do all by themselves and what they can do with a little bit of help. When a student says, I don't know, they're basically raising a flag and saying, hey, I'm in my ZPD. No opt-out is just the structured support, the scaffolding that helps them cross that gap. So when you pull it all together, you see this really powerful alignment. It taps into the Pygmalion effect by showing you believe in the student. It provides that scaffolding right in their zone of proximal development, and it builds a growth mindset by teaching kids that I don't know isn't a final judgment on their intelligence, it's just the starting line for learning something new. But, and this is a really big but, this technique is not universally loved. Not by a long shot. It came out of the no excuses charter school movement, which has faced a ton of criticism. So we absolutely have to look at the other side of this coin. So here's the heart of the critique. It's really a sociological one. Opponents worry that techniques like no opt-out, which demand very specific ways of speaking and participating, can feel really controlling. The concern is that they might accidentally devalue a student's own way of communicating, their own cultural identity, in favor of one rigid, standardized norm. And these arguments point to some really serious risks. I mean, are you just teaching a kid to comply and repeat back an answer? Or are you actually building deep understanding? Can the pressure to perform create a ton of anxiety instead of confidence? And let's be honest, if a teacher delivers this with a harsh tone, a technique that's meant to be supportive can turn into something pretty damaging. Okay, but here's the twist. There's a powerful counterargument that completely flips this critique on its head. It says that the very structure that people criticize could actually be a major tool for fighting for equity in the classroom. We all know that teachers are human, and humans have unconscious biases. A teacher might, without even realizing it, call on some students less than others, or let certain kids off the hook when they're struggling. It allows some students to just become invisible. But because no opt-out is a system that applies to everybody, it acts as a check. It forces the teacher to engage with, support, and get a successful answer from every single student, no matter what their own biases might be. So, where does that leave us? Is this thing a tool of oppression or a tool for liberation? Well, like with pretty much everything in education, the answer isn't really in the technique itself. It's all about how you use it. This right here is basically the roadmap for doing it right. If you're worried about it just being rote repetition, you follow up with a why or a how question. To make sure students feel safe and not stressed, the teacher's tone has to be warm, patient, and supportive. And to fight that unconscious bias, you pair it with other strategies, like cold call, to make sure everyone's voice is heard. So here's the bottom line. It all comes down to the delivery and the intent behind it. In one teacher's hands, sure, this could feel like a gotcha moment, a tool for control. But in another teacher's hands, it's a profound statement of belief in a student's potential. It's a system of supported accountability that just refuses to let anyone fall through the cracks. Ultimately, this whole debate around no opt-out pushes us to ask a really fundamental question. It's not about choosing between high standards on one side and a warm, nurturing environment on the other. The real challenge, the real art of teaching is figuring out how to fuse them together, how to build classrooms that are both incredibly demanding and incredibly supportive for every single kid.